Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IS English. As we all know, there is a war going on in the Middle East, which on one hand involves US and Israel, and on another, it involves Iran. But you need to understand presently the war is not just limited to these countries. It has extended to other US allies in the region like UAE, like Saudi, like Qatar. So in our today's video, we'll try to understand how an attack on Ras Laffan oil field located in Qatar is a cause of concern for India. Now, the reason why I've picked up this topic for our today's discussion is because recently Israel bombed South Pars, which is world's largest natural gas field located in the Persian Gulf. And you'll be surprised to know South Pars is a gas field which is shared between Iran and Qatar. Now, responding to the South Pass attack, Iranian missiles on the morning of March 19th, it struck Ras Laffan, which is world's largest or the biggest natural gas facility located in Qatar. Now, these attacks have the potential, or this can be seen as a major escalation in the region, which has the potential to prolong this conflict further. And as we understand, more the conflict prolongs, the more will be the disruption in the supplies of fossil fuels. And that is why it is a cause of concern for India. Now, before we move forward, we need to understand the geographical location of where the attack actually happened. This happened in the Persian Gulf region, very close to the Qatar's border where South Pars is located, and Ras Laffan is basically a LNG facility located inside Qatar. To take a close look, this is where South Pars and Ras Laffan is located, very close to the Persian Gulf and very close to the Strait of Hormuz, which has been in use for almost 2 weeks now. Now, before we move forward, the notes which I will be using for our today's session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Okay. Now, first, let us understand what will be the economic fallout of this particular attack. Although the true damage of how much damage was done to both South Pars and the Ras Laffan is presently unknown, but it marks a significant escalatory implications. First implication, although it is unclear how much damage was done, but it is very clear that it will take a significant amount of time for the gas output from these regions to normalize, even if the war to be stopped today. And the second, which is a more cause of concern for everyone, is that until now, the problem was already or the problem until now was only with respect to supplies of the fossil fuel outside the Persian Gulf, because for a long period of time Strait of Hormuz is under attack primarily by Iran. But now another cause of concern has emerged. Another cause of concern comes in terms of attack done to production and supply side infrastructure in the region, which has the potential to prolong the disruptions that may be the consequence of this war. Right? And as the consequence of all these disruptions, you can see the prices of crude oil has increased. The prices of an international oil benchmark known as Brent, which was already more than $100 per barrel for the past 1 week, now it has escalated to $118 per barrel, which is 50% higher than the prices of crude oil before the war actually started. And naturally, even the prices of natural gases have increased. So this has the potential to bring what is known as imported inflation into India. Right? Now let us understand what is the importance of Ras Laffan as far as global LNG supplies are concerned. This is why the Ras Laffan hit is of particular significance. Now Qatar Energy, which is the company maintaining this gas field, Ras Laffan, it primarily produces LNG from here. It is responsible for liquefaction and maintaining the liquefaction plants, and as well as it also established the export infrastructure for all the LNG exports out of this particular oil field. And this particular oil field before the attack accounted for roughly 20% of global LNG supply. Although the extent of damage is unknown, but it is for sure that even if the war were to stop today, it might take weeks for the LNG supplies to normalize, which means presently and for a significant amount of the month's period, it will lead to disruptions in the supply of LNG. Similarly, why it is a cause of concern for India? For that, we need to understand India's LNG dependency on the country of Qatar. Now, Qatar presently is India's largest source of LNG. As you can understand, India is not self-sufficient when it comes to ensuring domestic supplies of LNG. So almost half of India's natural gas demand needs to be met through imports. And therefore, India imported 27 million tons of LNG in the financial year of 2024 and 25. And more than two-fifths of it, that is 41.4%, came from Qatar. And whatever came from Qatar, almost all of it emerged from Ras Laffan gas field. Now, with LNG from Qatar and other sources in the West Asia are unable to reach India because of the disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz and the production suspension after the attack done by Iran, it has the potential to disrupt supplies, and therefore Indian government has cut the natural gas supplies to certain industries in India. Right? Now, why is India worried? Now, you need to understand just not LNG, but for import of other fossil fuels also, India relies significantly on the region of West Asia where the conflict is happening. So the disruption from this conflict presently was only related to the disruptions happening in the Strait of Hormuz region. But now it has been escalated. Not just the disruption is with respect to the transportation of the fossil fuel. Now the disruption and the attacks are also happening in the refineries and the oil producing and export infrastructure. And therefore, it will cause a real supply problem as far as India is concerned. Now, you need to understand India depends on imports for essential fossil fuels. For example, 88% of its crude oil requirements is imported. India's 60% of LNG needs are imported, as far as 50% of natural gas requirements are imported. And for large percent of these energy imports, India depends on West Asia. And primarily, all of these supplies emerge from Persian Gulf, enters into Strait of Hormuz, from where it reaches Gulf of Oman, and eventually into the Arabian Sea region. So any disruption, if it were to happen in Strait of Hormuz, and if any disruption attacks or any disruption in the infrastructure happens in this region, naturally it will affect the supplies of the fossil fuels into India. Right? Now, besides just natural gas, let us understand how much India depends for other fuels. Now, around 2.5 to 2.7 billion barrels per day, India's crude oil imports, India actually imports this much amount of crude oil, and as much as 40% of total crude oil imports for a long period average is sourced from the Gulf countries. Now, although India does not import any of the Iranian oil because of the American sanctions, so the major suppliers of fossil fuels to India, that is crude oil from this region, are Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE, as well as Kuwait. Right? So this was crude oil. Now let us understand how much India depends on imports of natural gas as well as LPG, because here the situation is more dire. Now, roughly 60% of India's LNG imports, it actually comes from Strait of Hormuz, and this situation even aggravates because India's 90% of total LPG imports are sourced from the region, and this is where the conflict is happening. And that is why, because 90% of our LPG comes from this region, and that is why the first crisis India had was with respect to LPG supply crisis. And this is the primary reason why India even today remains worried. Now, before we move on to the question that have appeared in UPSC, relating to the topic that we have covered right now, there is a very important announcement that we have started to take admissions for 26th March batch of the resolution. Now, resolution batches of StudyIQ, it provides you classes for all the important subjects. Not just this, we also ensure to provide you one-to-one mentorship which you can utilize to solve each and every of your doubts. Now, before you go into exam, it is very necessary for you to practice your learning, and you can do that with prelims and mains test series which are already attached to our resolution batches. Take admissions in these batches, just go to our website. But before making the payment, if you apply this code ATS Live, it will help you fetch maximum discounts. Please remember, these batches are available separately for the year 2027 as well as 2028. So do not forget to apply the code and get as much discounts as possible. Please remember, the batches starts from 26th of March. So if you hurry up, you can start this batch itself. Okay. Now, this is the question that appeared in the UPSC 2011 exam. In the context of global oil prices, Brent crude oil is frequently referred in the news. What does this term imply? Please do let me know the correct answers in the comment section. This should not be at all difficult. And if you have the answer ready, please do let me know in the comment section. And if you're waiting to download the notes, this is where you'll find the notes. The channel's name is called as ATS Live. So this is all from my side. Please have a very good day. We'll see each other again quite soon.